Hi. If you're anything like me, you probably really enjoy reading horror books, especially during spooky season. So, if you're interested, I am going to be giving you 8 horror book recommendations with just like a basic summary, no major spoilers here. But if you're interested in major spoilers, most of these books my best friend and I have done reviews for, which have major spoilers. First, hi, I'm Yahaira. I'm half of the Book Fix podcast. So let's just get started. But before, if you have any recommendations of your own for horror books, please let me know. Drop them down in the comments below. Just no major spoilers, please. I want to go in blind. I think that's the best way to do it. These are not in any particular order. I want to first talk about episode 13, written by Craig D. Louie. This story is so amazing. It literally ignited my love for horror books. I think we reviewed it 2 years ago. So perfect. But I do want to say that if you're going to read this, if you're going to experience this, you must experience it with the ebook, physical book, along with the audiobook. The audiobook was so immersive. I really felt like I was watching a movie. I felt like I was there, experiencing everything with the main characters. It was really scary. So this book basically follows a cast of characters. The main character, I believe his name was Matt, along with his wife Claire, and other people. They have a show called Fade to Black, and they are going to be filming episode 13 where, they haven't had the best of views up until now. So they are paranormal investigators, and this investigation goes a little bit crazy. And I love this because it is told through journals, through interviews. You experience it firsthand. It's just so incredible. I love this story so much. And honestly, it did spook me. It did spook me. And what I love also is that the main character, Matt, is a believer of ghosts, but his wife, Claire, is the complete opposite. She is a total skeptic. Like, she just does not believe it. So it's just fun to see their dynamic going through this episode together. The next book that I want to recommend is by Dathan Arbach. It is Pen Pal, which was originally a creepypasta that just kind of blew up. And I hadn't read it until it was in the book form. And it follows our main character who is trying to piece together these like scattered memories, scattered events that occurred when he was a child. And I think it followed him for a minute. And he's thinking that, these events were all just very random, strange occurrences. But then he slowly starts realizing that maybe these events weren't so random. Not to give any major spoilers, but I do just want to say that if you cannot handle anything happening to children, then skip this one. But this story was definitely a journey. It was definitely creepy, and I just have to recommend it. The next book I want to recommend is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This story follows 3 women in different eras. It is sapphic vampires, but sad. It's long, but I do think that the journey is worth it for me personally. I really, really enjoyed it. It follows our first main character, Maria, in Spain in the 1500s, and she basically has to survive. She knows that it's eat or be eaten, so she knows that she has to be forced into a marriage, so she is 3 steps ahead and calculates who that marriage will be to. But of course, things don't necessarily go as planned, and so she meets a woman who potentially gives her a way out. Sorry, I need to get more comfortable. Next main character is Charlotte. Takes place in London in the 1800s. Charlotte, same struggle, knows that she's going to have to be forced into a marriage, but Charlotte knows that she doesn't like guys. She likes girls, especially her best friend. But unfortunately, during this time, it's very difficult. And so there's a forbidden kiss, and it kind of just changes everything. But Charlotte realizes that in order to have freedom, you might still end up a caged bird. That's all I'll say. And the last main character is Alice. It takes place in 2019 in Boston. And she is definitely the type of girl who feels like she's always been in the shadows, very wallflower. She wants to reinvent herself. She goes to a party with her friends or roommates, and unfortunately that night changes everything, and she wakes up with a couple of bites. So eventually these three women's lives do intertwine. I definitely recommend this one. Oh my God, it's so good. It is long, but I really, really loved it. It is sad, but I think it's still worth it. If you've read it, please let me know your thoughts. The next book that I want to recommend is Slewfoot by Brom. If you're in the mood for feminine rage, this is the one for you. Abatha is married to someone she doesn't know very well. I believe it was an arranged marriage, so she does end up at a Puritan settlement where people don't want a girlie to thrive, especially her husband's brother. He's very, very annoying, tries to control everything, and she is trying to give her husband advice like, hey, grow a backbone, please. Your brother's trying to take advantage of you and our farm. So I think I can say this because it happens pretty early on. Abatha's husband does not make it because there is something in the woods that potentially, maybe not, is the devil. So now, because Abatha does not have her husband, everyone is trying to tell her, well, now this farm has to go to your brother-in-law, but she does not like her brother-in-law, and she thinks that she can do it on her own. But her brother-in-law is trying to sabotage her. Of course he is. He's a man. And what makes it worse is that the town is starting to whisper, wait, hold on. Abatha believes in like, what is it called? Charms and like little, not potions, but similar to potions. And so now people are starting to think maybe she's a witch, and her stupid brother-in-law is not helping the rumors because he is not happy that she is able to sustain this farm on her own. And so he is basically fueling the rumors. And yeah, it's just a girlie trying to survive, and maybe the devil helps her out a little bit. Maybe. The next book I want to recommend is My Darling Dreadful Thing. It is a gothic, sapphic horror story. It is written by Johanna van Veen. It follows our main character named Roos, who has not had the best upbringing. Unfortunately, her mother is a con artist, and she would conduct fake seances where she would have certain trigger words, and her daughter would be underneath the floorboards, pulling strings, making lights flicker. So because she was so lonely as a child, she did end up gaining a ghostly friend named Ruth. Stay with me now. Ruth is the main character. Ruth is the ghost, okay? So when Roos is older, this wealthy woman shows up. Her name is Agnes, who wants to speak to her dead husband. Roos is able to actually see ghosts, so she does see something. Listen, their lives get tangled up. Agnes scoops her up because she's wealthy, and they go to Agnes's home, and things just start happening, okay? I definitely recommend this one. But it's also sad. Oh my God, all of these stories are so sad. Is that why they're considered horror? Because they have sad endings? I don't know. If you've read it, please let me know. The next book I want to recommend is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. Now think Carrie reimagined. Carrie by Stephen King, of course. Carrie reimagined, but through the lens of racism, segregation. So this book follows our main character, Maddie. Maddie has a secret that nobody in Springville High School knows about. And unfortunately, there is a rainy day. I don't know if it's rainy or misty or foggy. No, I think there's some rain involved, where people realize that she is biracial. And then a lot of bullying happens. And similarly to Carrie, I mean, I'm assuming you know the story of Carrie, right? That's all I'll say, because in case you don't know, I'm not going to spoil it, but Maddie has certain abilities to move things around. So, hey, don't bully people, okay? Moral of the story, don't bully. The next book that I'm going to recommend is The Starving Saints, written by Caitlin Starling. Another sapphic horror. I didn't do that on purpose, but hey, maybe we're blessed. This book follows Amar Castle, which is currently starving. It was thirsty before, but Fozine was able to make a miracle happen and make water appear again, clean, drinkable water. And so the king is kind of expecting her to do the same with food, but she's been struggling to do that. Like, everything that she tries just doesn't work out for her, and she is getting very restless. And so the king appoints Servoine, a knight, who's a woman, to oversee her, to try to force her to make the food appear. It's not until Fozine prays or hopes for like a miracle when something does happen. But instead of food, angels appear, and food appears along with them. Like, they bring the food. And Fozine is just not that trusting over these angels because, yes, food appears, but it also appears that the people are still insatiable. Trigger warning, there is gore, there is blood, and there is can I say the word cannibalism? Can I say that word? I don't know. There's some weird rules on YouTube, so proceed with caution. So the next book that I want to recommend is The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Also follows three girlies. Another theme. So this one is about witches. There is 3 different timelines. The oldest timeline is in 1908. It follows Alba, who knows about witches, has a sensitivity to certain things, but this ability is not unlocked yet, okay? So she lives on a farm with her family, and then her uncle shows up, and her brother is not too happy about it because they don't have a dad. So her brother is the one who's definitely in charge of the farm. And so he doesn't like it because now his uncle is like trying to, impose his own thoughts, his own ideas. They're not welcomed here, okay? And then Alba witnesses, while they're at the market, this lady like tugging at her brother, like trying to get his attention, she's not sure what's happening. But her brother tells her she was trying to like warn me about something. I don't know, but she scratched me. Next day, brother is missing. So I'm gonna skip the middle timeline, okay? So the more recent timeline is in 1998, and it follows Minerva trying to write her thesis, and she is trying to talk about this author who's not super well known. Her name is Beatrice Tremblay. So that is the middle timeline because Beatrice Tremblay's journals take place in 1934. And Beatrice talks about her roommate / friend who could see ghosts and then ends up going missing one day. And as Minerva, who is in 1998, is trying to understand like what is happening, things start mirroring what is happening in the journals and what is happening to Alba. It starts mirroring her own life. So yeah, I don't know. I just love this story so much. I thought it was such a good witch story, but trigger warning, there is some non-consensual activity that happens near the end, okay? So again, proceed with caution. Okay, so I didn't realize that I'm already at 8. My bad. So I'll just give you 2 more horror book recommendations to make it just 10. So this one is a novella. It is titled Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. It follows 15-year-old Junior who on one night goes to the kitchen and sees the ghost of his dead father, who seems to be walking towards like the laundry room. And he kind of becomes obsessed with trying to see him again because he believes that his father is trying to tell him something. Because it's a short horror novella, that's all I will say, but I definitely recommend this one. It was a really, really good novella. My last, but certainly not least, horror book recommendation is going to be The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. This book, how can one explain perfection? How can one Talk about art. I am definitely biased because I was in a spooky kick, and I'm going to be so honest, okay? It was so nice to have a little bit of romance. I missed it. I'm going to be honest. So this story follows our main character, Alba, who, again, this is during a time when all women were marriage and having babies. So she comes up with the plan to blackmail a friend because this friend is really nice. He's a really nice man. She blackmails him into an engagement because she wants to be free from her overbearing parents and, free from the possibility of being married to someone who's controlling, abusive, and so on. And during this time, there was a plague happening. So her fiance, Carlos, tells her, hey, let's go to my estate where we can be confined. We can be safe. It's going to be chill there. So her and her parents go to Carlos's estate, and there is a mine there. And this mine may be a little haunted because when Alba goes inside of the mine with Carlos there, everything just blackens around her. She gets lost, and then she starts hearing the cries of a baby. There is a second main character. His name is Elias. And Elias is someone who really values knowledge, really values, let's just say he's not someone who really thought about love. Yeah. He does dabble in the occult, and he does end up buying this book of spells that just seems to be calling to him at a market. And then he ends up having to go home where his grandfather tells him that his father passed away, but now he's inherited his father's debts. So, hey, now you're going to have to go work in the mine that your father bought alongside the father's brother, to pay off this debt. So he has to use mercury to do something with the silver within the mine. I don't know. You know what? That part meant nothing to me. That was nothing to me. Okay. So he is here. He hears Alba screaming, goes in and helps her out. And then after this moment, Alba starts acting a little different, a little weird, a little suspicious. And she may or may not be possessed. And Elias may or may not be the one willing to help her. The story was so beautiful. I loved it so much. I read it twice. I finished it and I was like, I need to experience that once again. And I read it again. And maybe I'll read it a third time because it was just so good to me, in my opinion. In my humble opinion, it was the best book I've read ever. So that concludes my recommendations for this spooky season. Please comment down below and let me know what books you recommend. I am so curious. I always look forward to horror books, honestly. They're fun. They really linger. A lot of them really stay with you, and I love telling other people about the story because I know they're not going to read it, so I just tell them the entire story from start to finish, and it's a fun journey. So let me know if you've read any of these books that I've recommended. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And please check out the Book Fix podcast. My best friend and I are sometimes funny. Sometimes. I promise a couple laughs, a couple giggles.